You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
From the rolling bluffs of the Driftless region to the pristine shorelines of Superior in Michigan, from the Northwoods to the Kettle Moraine, Civic Media broadcasts across all of Wisconsin for all of Wisconsin. Take a trip with us across the radio network to hear from communities throughout the state. This is the Civic Media Spotlight.
Hello and welcome to the second hour of the Civic Media Spotlight. To kick us off, we have the Maggie Dawn Show. And with state politics heating up, Mike Van Someren joins the Maggie Dawn Show to discuss his newly announced candidacy for Wisconsin's 33rd Senate District. Mike discusses his campaign, where he calls for unity and fair economic opportunity.
In the United States is more paperwork.
Once again, here's lawyer and economist Maggie Dawn.
Welcome, everybody. And welcome back if you're rejoining us. My name is Maggie Dawn. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network. Bunch of breaking news to start off the hour. The Brewers have logged their 12th win in a row, and everybody's looking forward to those free George Webb burgers. Did you stand in line back in 1987? Do you think the Brewers can go all the way? We will discuss that before the end of the hour. And in other more serious news, there was a decision today out of the D.C. Court of Appeals. That panel cleared the way in a 2-1 vote for the Trump administration to continue refusing to spend billions of dollars in foreign aid, finding that aid organizations that would have received that aid, bizarrely, lack standing to sue. I don't know what's going on in the D.C. Court of Appeals, but that certainly seems a wee bit bizarre. On the plus side, a different lawsuit challenging that same action by the Trump administration. This one filed in a federal district court out of Maryland. Today, a ruling came down from that judge finding that that case can proceed to discovery, rejecting the Trump administration's request for a dismissal of that action. So you've got two courts on both sides of the same issue relating to USAID funding. In other breaking news today, Politico reporting around 2 p.m. today, local time here in Wisconsin, that Trump will be looking to extend his seizure of control over the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department for longer than 30 days. Other reporting in the last 24 hours is that Donald Trump is working with the Pentagon, has directed the Pentagon to draft up very detailed plans to do what he's doing in D.C. across the country. Are you worried? Because I sure am. And the Texas saga about more partisan gerrymandering continues. We're going to rejoin that debate at 5:30. So if you have thoughts about whether or not Democrats should meet fire with fire, we're going to engage that discussion again at 5:30. Get your thoughts ready, and we'll kick that off at the bottom of the hour. Right now, I'm really excited to introduce a newly announced, just today, candidate for the 33rd State Senate District here in Wisconsin. His name is Mike Van Someren. We've got some sound from his announcement earlier today. Jacob, let her rip.
And because of that, I've decided that today is my day to do something. I am formally announcing my candidacy for the 33rd Senate District here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, I'm sure there's more than just a few of you out there asking yourselves, what qualifications does this guy have to be a state senator? Well, like all of you, I wear many hats. I'm a dad, a husband, a practicing attorney of over 13 years, a former UW offensive lineman. But most importantly, I care. I care about the people in this town. I care about the people in my district. I care about the people in my state. I care about the people in my country. I care about you and your family and your business and your ability to have the opportunity to raise your family as you see fit. And I don't believe that there are any problems that can't be solved if we actually try to solve them.
Mike, let me just start with what I think is an absolutely essential concept and idea to get across to all voters. You said, I care about your family and I care about your business.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that sometimes that basic message gets lost. Tell me why you want to run for office in this moment that is so partisan and so fractured and frankly so angry.
Well, because it's fractured and angry, right? Like we need cooler heads to prevail. We need people that step up, that say what many of us believe. As a Democrat, former Republican, by the way, I'm not against business. I am not against people getting wealthy. I'm not against that. I just firmly believe that when you get wealthy, when you work hard and you find success, your job is not to pull up the ladder behind you, but to help the next group up. And that's something I've carried through my entire life, something I learned from my parents, from my coaches. I played sports my entire life. It's one of those things that it's ingrained when we're young, and then when we get older, we're told to forget about it. And that's just not what I think this country stands for.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. I frequently talk about the idea that the way that Democrats sometimes talk about these issues that impact people's businesses and livelihoods, they talk about it all wrong. They just talk about the help part and not the respect and credit that is due to folks that start businesses, that work hard, that save, because they want their families to do well, because they want to pay for college for their kids, or they want to be able to retire and enjoy it. Those are things that should be applauded. What I want to see, and it sounds like you want to see, Mike, is that more of us are able to do that more of us can be successful, not fewer of us. I often say, if you're a guy or gal that's gotten a paycheck and maybe had a boss and started your business or tried to make payroll, I'm not talking about coming for your stuff. I'm talking about the billionaire overlord class. That's who I'm talking about. So bravo, Mike, and thanks for sharing that you're a reformed Republican trying to see the light. How do you plan on doing that? How do you plan on building those bridges, and getting Republicans and Democrats to come back to the table and have these conversations about the actual issues that are keeping us from moving our state forward and helping families do better across the state?
Quite honestly, it's by talking and doing and coming and going out there and lending my voice to people that don't feel comfortable saying stuff, people that don't know the words that they want to say. One of the things that I have developed over time, partly as being a lawyer, is being able to look at both sides of an issue and trying to find the middle ground. I draw a lot of my past. And one of the things I learned as a young lawyer is my job is as much about getting my client what they want, but with also finding out what my client actually wants. Because a lot of times people come in and you have these grand visions of everything you want, and you want 100% this, 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 and this. And you talk to them, you go, what do you need? And what is your ultimate goal? Because like I said, there's no problem that doesn't have a solution. We just have to find out what you actually want. You may like all of this stuff, and it would be great if you could have it, but if you can't have it, what do you actually want? And to your point earlier about, that's why I say I'm not against business. I work with businesses every day. I work with very good businesses that, one of the things that they pride themselves on is, they didn't fire anybody during COVID. They kept everybody working. They did everything right. But they're still having a hard time competing against these large multinational corporations that are doing nothing but cutting rates, cutting pay, doing everything they can to funnel more and more money to shareholders. And that's actually a very small group of people. It's a very small group of people that don't actually go in and make the economy run. And I'm not saying that that people that have capital, that have money, aren't important to the system. They absolutely are. But they're not the only people in the system. And the rest of us don't go to work just to feed them more money because they started a business. Without us, there is no business because we are the demand. You always hear it's Econ 101, and it's usually used derisively. It's always used as a put down. But Econ 101 says there is demand, so somebody starts a business to meet that demand. But step one is always the demand. I have never met a business owner that has come to me and said, I want to start a business. I'm going to sell this product, and that's it. Here's all the demand. Here's all the steps I've taken to show that this business is viable. And that business is never viable without customers. And we are those customers. And so the idea that workers should just be grateful to have a job to occupy our time. If that job doesn't pay well enough for you to buy the things that you need and pay enough for you to buy the things that you want, is it really a job worth doing?
Folks, that is Mike Van Summeren. He's going to be my guest host on this show because he's saying all the things that I've been harping about as an economist and a lawyer for a long time. I say it the fancy way, Mike, I'm going to take your language about this. Demand first. That's what makes the economy run. And the only folks that demand goods at the level that makes our economy run are middle class and working people, folks that get paychecks and have bosses and start small businesses. Without us, the U.S. economy does not do well. It is because of the middle class created that time that many Republicans hearken back to, the golden age, if they will, in the 50s and 60s and 70s. It's because we had a vibrant and growing middle class that had buying power, that could consume things, that we saw our economy start to take off during that period of time. I'm so with you on all of that, Mike. And seriously, you want to guest host the show and talk about just that? I am there for it. Let's talk a little bit about how you want this campaign to look and feel for you. I think Democrats have been not running particularly well in some instances because of the very messages that you're talking about aren't getting through. How do you want to campaign differently? What do you want folks in the 33 Senate District to know about what they can expect to see from you in this campaign?
Sure. So I want this campaign to be different in that I don't plan on texting people all the time. I don't want to spam your inbox. I don't want to spam your phone. I am calling people, obviously, to talk to them, find out what they're most concerned about. Like, the only way things get done is if our representatives are actually listening to us and know what's going on in our lives. And that's why we hire these people through our elections, is to do things to try and help that. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I ran is because I went to a listening session with Chris Kapanga, and there were Republicans there talking about ways that we could try and fund emergency medical services, EMS. And they were talking about all these different things that the state could do to help out. I mean, these people weren't asking for a handout. They were just offering different models that have worked in other states. And all they did was he sat there and said, I don't believe in that. Well, that's not your job. Like, should I be lucky enough to get elected? My whole thing would be, I'm going to come in and listen to you. I'm going to hear what your concerns are. I'm going to hear what you want from us. And maybe the state can't provide it, or maybe that can't, but then I'm going to talk to you like you're a client, because that's exactly what you are. I work for you. So I'm going to talk about things that we could maybe do, and would that address the issue, and look at things in a unique way, because I truly believe that if we actually want to solve a problem, there's no problem that can't be solved.
Folks, again, that is Mike Summeren. He is running for state senate in the 33rd State Senate District. Something really important there that you hit on, Mike, and I have talked about this many times during my own career as a lawyer, and that is, you often have to go through a lot of listening and asking different kinds of questions from folks, and for me, clients in the past, to find out what it is that they're really going for, and to make sure that you understand the problem that they're trying to address, and then sharing what is and is not possible in a very good faith, upfront way. I hear you saying, Mike, that you don't want to be the politician that promises everything to everybody, but brings some truth-telling to the table, as well as some good faith listening, so that we can understand what can get done better in state government to serve folks. We're going to have to take care of a little bit of business. Mike's going to stick around with me. We're going to bring it back on the other side. Maybe we talk a little Badger football. Maybe I get in a little rugby. We'll have more fun and some business talk on the other side. Stick with me. I'm Maggie Dawn. We got Mike Van Summeren, candidate for the 33rd State Senate District, with us. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network.
The Maggie Dawn Show is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs across the network weekday afternoons from 4 until 6. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Up next on the Civic Media Spotlight, we have Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Jim Remeke from Friends of the Apostle Islands joins Mornings with Pat Kreitlow to talk about Wave Watch, a joint project with UW-Madison and the National Park Service to give real-time information on waves, water temperature, and other data points that can also be used to measure a changing climate.
Remember, you can always subscribe to this radio program as a podcast as well. That way, even if you listen live every morning, you can listen back to something. Did I hear that right? Or I want to hear that guest again. Head over to Spotify and follow us that way, or Apple, wherever you get your podcast. It would also enable you to listen back to Tom Nelson talking with us yesterday and with Kristen Lyerly on her show last weekend about his new book, Wrecked, the Edmund Fitzgerald and the Sinking of the American Economy. If you heard the interview and you're interested in getting the book, head over to the Michigan State University Press. They're the publishers, msupress.org, for more about the Edmund Fitzgerald as a metaphor for the late 20th century economy and some terrible decisions made at the corporate and governmental levels. Lake Superior boating is also part of the topic we're going to discuss with Jeff Renicky, though on an admittedly smaller scale than the Edmund Fitzgerald, but still, there are plenty of boating that happens. And Jeff, as a part of the Friends of the Apostle Islands, is going to tell us about a partnership aimed at keeping boating safe, including these buoys as part of the Wave Watch program. Jeff Renicky, how are you?
I'm doing well, Pat. Thank you. I'd rather be out boating, but I'm glad to be here talking about it.
Exactly. If it helps other people to boat safely, then that's just fine. So the Wave Watch buoys are a joint project between UW-Madison, the Friends of the Apostle Islands, and the National Park Service. And so tell us about these 5 different data buoys deployed in strategic places around the island. What is it that they do, and how do we benefit from them?
Well, first, maybe a little background. I always chuckle when I see that Minnesota license plate boast about 10,000 lakes, because Wisconsin actually has 15,074.
Yeah.
And we border the two of the Great Lakes. And so we have some of the greatest boating in the world. But with that, of course, comes some dangers. In 2023, Wisconsin unfortunately set a record with 28 boating fatalities. We average about 19. And so the Wave Watch buoy project is a way to show folks that safe boating is informed boating. And with the buoys, we can help people make better decisions, as you were talking about a moment ago.
And so you do that in these buoys that tell me about the things that they measure.
Sure. So there's 5 buoys out there in strategic places that are important to boaters in the Apostle Islands. Every 30 minutes, they send back information on wave height, wave frequency, which is the time period between the crests of the waves, the wave direction, and water temperature, which and then it's refreshed every 30 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the entire boating season. So it's not a forecast. It's even more important. It's real-time information right for where the boaters are going, right at their fingertips.
So this is information at your fingertips. Is there like any kind of a charge to access this information?
I don't think boating safety should have a price. And so use of our Wave Watch program is free. People can just go to our website at friendsoftheapostleislands.org and ask us to send them a QR code. And what I do as a boater myself is part of my preparation process in my boat is before I slip the lines, I take my phone, I scan the QR code, and I check conditions to where I'm going. So the use of it is free. Now, of course, there is a cost in the process, and so we appreciate donations to try to keep this project going, and those donations as well can be made at our website. But safety should be for all of us, and it should be free.
Yes, because as noted, it's a roughly $17,000 a year contract with UW-Madison, so sponsorships are greatly appreciated. Are there also ramifications when it comes to measuring our changing climate with these buoys?
Yeah, very much so. Lake Superior is the largest lake in the world by surface area, as many people know. And so it's very, very fragile to the changes in climate because it has such an incredibly large surface area. And also, like all lakes, of course, it goes through what they call upwelling or flipping. And so the recording of temperatures, surface temperatures, can be very important. We had an event last year with the buoy out by Myers Beach, which is near the sea caves, where the temperature literally dropped something on the order of 25 or 30 degrees in a matter of a very short period of time when the lake flipped. Now, that information is not only important to boaters, because, of course, cold water can be a very dangerous situation if you're not prepared, but it's also important to climate change researchers to understand how our lake is reacting to the changes in water temperature and the extreme conditions that climate change can bring about.
And then finally, how's been the reaction to it, to having this kind of a rather sophisticated safety program out there on the water?
Oh, people love it. They call it, if for some reason, we've had 98.7% connectivity on the buoys, which is incredible, because if I was floating around in Lake Superior from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I wouldn't have 97.8% connectivity. But as soon as it goes down, my phone starts ringing. People are using it. We've had more than 30,000 hits on our website last year for this, and people are getting used to it. They're checking it. It's even become kind of a recreational thing. People who are not even going boating that day, sometimes wisely because of strong winds, will check on the buoy in a place like the Flats near Long Island or Devil's Islands just to ooh and ah about the size of the waves. So it's become a very important tool for safe boating in the Apostle Islands.
It sounds like it. And again, to learn more, head to friendsoftheapostleislands.org and learn more about the Wave Watch buoys and much more about the group as well. Jeff Renicky representing it for us on our weekly Way Up North segment. Hey, it was great to talk to you again, Jeff. Thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. Let's all be safe out there.
Yes, please. Coming up in our next hour, we're going to be talking to Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area and also a Milwaukee area resident about what he's seen and experiencing, and also a bit about his recent trip heading over to London to take in a little personal time and to see a particular show that I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing about. Chad Holmes along the way as well, all after the 8 o'clock news. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Mornings with Pat Kreitlow is affiliated with the Civic Media Radio Network and airs on select Civic Media stations weekday mornings from 6 until 9. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
Up next on the Civic Media Spotlight, we have the John and Gordy Show. With the measles starting to come out in Wisconsin, John and Gordy talk with Dr. Jim Conway, UW Health Kids Pediatric Infectious Disease Doctor and Professor in the Divisions of Infectious Diseases and Global Pediatrics. Gordy talked about his time when he got the measles and what people should look out for. They got into a conversation about RFK Jr. and his unwarranted reasonings for more trials before approving certain types of vaccines.
John and Gordy and WMDX in the morning.
7:35, sunshine today, highs in the mid to upper 70s. This portion of the show brought to you by Madison Hearing Aid Center. Go to their website, madisonhearingaidcenter.com, take an initial hearing test, or visit them at 4706 Cottage Grove Road in Madison. You can give them a call. Talk to Jim or Sarah at 608-249-4077. They are helping people change their lives. Their goal isn't just selling hearing aids. It's improving the quality of life through better hearing. MadisonHearingAidCenter.com.
Yeah.
Beautiful sunshine today. Highs in the mid to upper 70s. Going to be nice all day long. Let's bring our guest in, Dr. Jim Conway. He is the UW-Madison professor and
of pediatrics.
Yeah, professor of pediatrics. Jim, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Really happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
So one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is we heard a couple of weeks ago that measles had made its way into Wisconsin. Do you have any kind of tracking on that? Do you know, is it continuing to spread in the Badger
And how
State?
did it get here?
Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. You know, we kind of figured it was inevitable given that our immunization rates are a little bit lower than many other states in the country. And obviously this outbreak that started in Texas and has been spreading now for almost 8 months, it was inevitable that it was going to get here eventually. It really gets here by people traveling who are under immunized, coming into contact, and then dropping into our beautiful state. Fortunately, we're still in a monitoring situation, but we haven't seen any secondary cases yet. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it's not going to take hold and spread widely here.
Yeah.
So I remember years, when I was a kid, decades ago, I got the measles, and I don't know if I had, got an immunization after that, or if I needed one after that. Can you can you give us a little timeline on this? Because I think a lot of people our age and in the upper age brackets got the measles, and it didn't seem to be that big of a deal. It was pretty common.
And a lot of those records way back when aren't there anymore.
Right. So I don't know if I need a measles shot? Do I, what can you tell us?
Yeah. Great question. So, I think people are so focused on the kids. I think we need to remember that, most of the transmission as this is moving around the country is actually adults that get into one of these areas, get infected. It's a disease with a really long incubation period, so people can come back and not even realize that they've got it. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot of these adults because, I think we need to remember that the MMR vaccine, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, was only routinely recommended for kids starting in 1983. And then we added a second dose because we realized there was a group of people that needed a second dose. So we routinely recommended a second dose in 1989. The vaccine was around in the 70s, but it wasn't universally used. And so there's a fair number of people that were born in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that kind of snuck in there, didn't get the measles, didn't get the vaccine, or maybe just got one of the older versions of the vaccine, who actually are still vulnerable. And so for now many years, probably 5-6 years, the CDC and others have been kind of pushing out reminders to adults that if they are not absolutely certain, better to be safe than sorry and to get a dose of the MMR vaccine.
Now, RFK Jr. has banned a lot of the mRNA vaccine research that is going on out there. And now there is, mRNA is a different way of approaching, giving people vaccines than it is to introduce the actual bacteria or the infectious bacteria that was in our normal everyday vaccines prior to mRNA, right?
Correct. So, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine is actually a pretty old school vaccine. It's actually live viruses that have been altered and are actually what we call attenuated. So they're really wimpy versions of those viruses that were that version of the vaccine. People tried, the original vaccine. We dug out my records. I'm, kind of close to your guys' ages. It turned out I got one of these older inactivated measles vaccines back in the 60s, which didn't really work that well. I got mumps when I was a kid, and many other my friends did as well. So this is kind of an old school vaccine, and it's still the tried and true. But you're right. Then we've moved for a lot of the vaccines or just kind of killed pieces of the vaccine. mRNA is this sort of new idea that you can actually introduce the way that a body can make those own little pieces on its own, and then those are what is used to stimulate the immune system. So it was basically, those have been in development for 20 years.
Yeah, it's not
to try to be just another advance. No, it's not new at all. But the MMR vaccine is, even though it's got an M in it, is old school technology, but it's been around for 50 years, tried and true, really safe, and works very, very well.
Now, RFK Jr. is trying to focus on more trials, waiting a longer period of time before approving a lot of these vaccines for public use. Is that a problem? Is that an excuse to not have the mRNA vaccines developed? Is that kind of an excuse?
Yeah, it may be. I mean, I think what they're asking for is something reasonable on the surface of it, but is actually unreasonable when you really get into the practicality of it. And what I mean by that is that when you look at traditional trials for drugs, you have what are called controlled trials with a placebo group, where you give some group of people the drug and you give some people a placebo. It's been determined by ethicists now for many years that if you have a standard of care where people are getting something, depriving people of that something to have a placebo group is just considered unethical. And so saying now that, for COVID vaccines, for instance, that we've been routinely recommending those now for many years, by saying that we need to have a placebo-controlled trial where we actually don't give the vaccine to people is depriving them of something that's become the standard of care. So for 40 years, we've actually had ways of doing trials where we still give people the accepted standard and then can test new versions of those things. And you're still comparing apples and apples. You're just doing it in a way that's ethical and safe. And so that's, I think, where the devil's in the details, that they're, kind of taking it on principle, but they're actually unintentionally or maybe intentionally depriving some people of what would be normally what we'd want them to do.
Yeah, it's very unethical. approach. That's how I always said. I never understood how we could have, people taking a drug and it's just a placebo and allowing them their whatever they have to progress and get worse and maybe even be fatal. I never understood.
Yeah.
I never understood those.
No, I know it is challenging, but I think when you're starting out with a brand new disease and you don't know what you're doing, it's certainly reasonable to say, we're going to try something because we don't even know if it's safe to do this. And so that's where, like in the very beginning with a brand new disease, when you're trying to tackle it, it is reasonable to start with a placebo. But once you have something that works, I think the classic examples are like certain types of cancer, where there was no treatment whatsoever. In the beginning, it was, let's see what it does by itself. And then let's try some things and see if they work and if they're safe to do so. But once you got something that at least works a little bit, then everything after that is incremental improvements and trying to say, what can we do that's better than what we were doing? And so you keep doing what you were doing for one group of people, and then you do the new thing for a smaller group of people.
There's something up here on the screen. FDA may not renew authorization for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for kids under 5. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's tricky. These vaccines were initially approved under what we called emergency use authorization. So instead of going through the long drawn out clinical trials to get them approved, all the COVID vaccines were initially under the emergency use authorization. And then gradually they've been approving them in the more formal sense. For kids, they haven't yet finished all of that work. And so they're still under that emergency use authorization. But if they do this and pull back, that potentially leaves us with nothing for kids, at least for healthy kids.
Yeah.
And so that is, something we're going to have to look into more clearly because that's just breaking this morning. But that potentially does, leave us with one hand tied behind our back.
Yeah. Talking to Dr. Jim Conway. He's a UW-Madison professor of pediatrics. Jim, so it's back to school time. What should parents be thinking about as far as immunizations for kids before they get back in school?
Yeah, this is a great time of year that everybody's sort of on the same page, that providers and clinics are all thinking about back to school time, and parents and kids need to be up to date to get their kids into school because we have school entry requirements. And so this is a great time to make sure you're up to date with everything. There is a new school entry requirement this year for middle school and high school kids to have a meningococcal meningitis vaccine. And so there's a bunch of kids that are going to need that to get into school. But it's a great time to then check where you are. And I think everybody needs to remember that during the dark days of the COVID pandemic, the healthcare systems were pretty shut down, and a lot of people missed out on all sorts of routine care, and we're still catching up from that. And so a lot of people missed out on vaccines during that period. So this is a great time to make sure you're caught up with all the things that you may have missed out on then, and also ask for a lot of adults that may have missed out on things, what they might be due for as well. So this is kind of a great time to think about vaccines. It's a little bit of a downtime usually for a lot of those other respiratory illnesses that happen in the winter when offices get clogged up with other things. So I would encourage everybody to sort of take this as an opportunity to take a look at your records and see what you might need.
Well, as they strip away all of these requirements for vaccines, it becomes more costly to the public who do still want to have those vaccines for their children and for their family, even just as a precautionary use of the vaccine, which, the boosters that we've all been getting, right? But taking that possibility away from certain age groups then requires them to pay for it, and they're expensive.
Yeah, it can. I mean, it is one of those things that, the devil's in the details. Fortunately, through the Affordable Care Act, by law, all the vaccines for kids under age 18 have to be covered by insurance. And we have the Vaccines for Children program, which actually pays for vaccines for those kids that are on Medicaid or don't have good health insurance. So at least for people under age 18, vaccines are essentially by law have to be covered or are available for free. So that's, I think, a commitment that everybody's made from a sort of social contract that we do believe that if kids need to go to school, and that's a perfect area for diseases to get transmitted, that we owe it to everybody to keep everybody safe. So at least for kids, everything's covered. And then certainly for the older population over 65, we've got Medicare, which also covers vaccines through the Medicare Part D programs. But you're right, for that group of people, 19 to 64, if you don't have good health insurance or are uninsured, then you are a little bit up the creek without a paddle. There are programs through public health to get most of those people some of those vaccines, but you're right, it can get tricky, and a lot of people have to make some hard decisions, and unfortunately sometimes do make the decision to defer their vaccines.
With what's going on now with RFK Jr. in charge, he is adding a certain amount of uncertainty, and the public is now, their perception of vaccines is changing. And I think after 3.5 years of this, we may be in real trouble. A lot of people may be convinced that vaccines aren't useful at all.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really astute observation that, I think one of the things that vaccines have always been challenged by is that the goal of vaccines is you give them to people, you hope that nothing happens, that they don't have a side effect, and then therefore you hope that nothing happens, that they don't get the disease, and so it's this sort of null, you're giving people something and hoping nothing happens. And everybody has, some minor side effects, or at least thinks they may have had them. And so eventually in people's minds, this becomes a balance of, is it worth it? Yeah. And then when you start undermining credibility and confidence in these things, then people start to make decisions that may put them at risk and makes everybody in society at risk. So we need to keep reminding people these things are safe, they're well tested, and they really are the most important thing that keeps us and our communities healthy.
Dr. Jim Conway, thank you for being with us. Yeah. We appreciate it. We'll have you back again.
Thanks, guys. Great work, and happy to be here.
All right. Thank you.
Jim Conway, UW-Madison professor of pediatrics. All right. We're going to be back with more of John and Gordy in the morning. Wrap things up for this Wednesday after this.
The John and Gordy Show is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs on WMDX weekday mornings from 6 until 8. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
To finish off the Civic Media Spotlight, we have Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. The guest of the band Horace Green joins in studio, and the band shares how they came up with the name, what the Mile of Music is, and when they formed the band. During their appearance on Nightlight, they play their new song, Cream for Pete, and his listeners.
Welcome back. You've got Nightlight with Pete Schwaba on the Civic Media Radio Network. We are jamming through a Thursday night here, the Christmas Eve of weeknights, and very exciting. The band has arrived. We've got, oh my gosh, this is exciting. We've got Horace Green in the studio. They're just getting set up right now. Our question of the night, if you still want to get in on the fun, folks, and have us read your text on the radio, what an amazing moment in a listener's life. Let us know what your favorite Steve Martin movie is or TV show. It's Steve Martin's birthday today. He turns 79. Jane Matnair was here earlier, host of Matnair on Air. She made the popcorn pick of the week and picked And Just Like That. That's the first time a TV show has been picked, I think, Con.
Yeah, I think so.
And which is totally fine.
Yeah.
Right? So it was fun to have Jane on. And right now, it is my pleasure to introduce, they are fresh off an incredible performance at the Mile of Music. Northeast Wisconsin-based Horace Green is here. Hey, guys.
Hey. Hey, Pete.
Okay, so we've got Tony, Austin. I don't know what I do with my questions. Let's have you guys introduce yourselves, and you can tell us a little bit about you as individuals, and we'll learn about the band, and then you're going to rock us, right?
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
Yeah, I'm Tony. I play guitar and sing.
I'm Sam. I play bass and sing.
And I am Austin, and I play the drums.
Outstanding. It's good to meet you guys.
You too, man.
Pleasure's all ours.
How long have you been... well, first of all, I have to ask you, where does the name Horace Green come from?
Yeah, so it's just an old man's name. Really, like, you get like a dog or a cat, you name the cat, you name the dog, you get a band, you name the band. I don't know.
Just one of those names.
It happens to coincide with the movie School of Rock, which was not necessarily intentional, but it's more of a happy accident.
Can you grab my questions, Con? They're right there. I don't know if you guys heard of this. This is a great story about Pearl Jam. Do you know what the name of Pearl Jam was supposed to be?
No.
They liked the NBA player Mookie Blaylock, and they were going to call their band name. They were going to name the band Mookie Blaylock. Okay. And they went away from that. I think that was smart because Pearl Jam's a great... Yeah. But it kind of reminded me of you guys, like Horace Green, and you said it's like an old guy, so that's kind of cool.
I was really into like blues music back then, and that's kind of like where the inspiration came from.
That's interesting. So talk about that. What brought you guys together, and how long have you been playing?
Well, Austin actually joined the band in 2019.
Yes, late 2019 was my first show with these guys.
Perfect time to join a band.
Seemed like a good time at
Late
the time.
2019.
Let's just set those live shows aside for a while.
Yeah, right. Which is pretty much what we did.
Yeah, I think it was like September you joined, and then learned all the music, and we had like a full next year of shows, and then everything got canceled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what did you do during that time? Did you go back to the drawing board with just writing a lot, or?
Yep. I did a lot of writing for the album we're going to be coming out with in May.
Okay.
And yeah, Cream was incepted during that time too.
Nice.
It was a COVID baby.
Yep.
That's exciting. So we might as well stick with that. We got a texter on the stream. Horace Green plays something they like to call cream. Because I said your genre is what I like to call rock and roll. And is that the song that's dropping tomorrow?
It is.
Yep. Could I twist your arm to play that after the news? Would you guys be willing to do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool. Tell us how, all right, so Tony, you're the lyricist typically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where do you get inspiration to write lyrics?
Usually I just have an idea, like one little idea for a song, and then I try to just build it around that and make a lyric message that seems cohesive. One thing I used to do when I first started writing songs is I would make these lyrics that only made sense to me.
Yeah.
And then no one else, I mean, they weren't like totally gibberish, but I kind of over time have tried to make the lyrics more relatable and make sense to a bigger group of people.
Okay.
But yeah, I just try to make sure it makes sense and, says some kind of message.
Yeah.
Cream is, there's a couple messages in Cream.
Sends a message.
Yeah. I like to let people, make their own meaning for the song.
Okay.
We put it out there and you can listen to it, and then whatever you feel, that's probably the right answer.
Do you ever do that, like after shows or in interviews like this, when someone has their interpretation and it was nothing like what you thought? You're like, oh, I love how you were trying to say this. And you're just like, yeah.
Yeah. That definitely happened. That happens within the band.
Oh,
I'm
funny.
still like there's some misheard lyrics from like our first album. We were listening back to a live performance, and I was like, oh, is that what you're saying? And then it was something completely different. So all these years later, I'm still learning.
Todd thought it was fish fry on that one song, one of the lyrics. Yeah. No, it definitely happens.
How was Mile of Music? You guys just performed there. It's just gotten to be this humongous music event right here in Northeast Wisconsin, which I think is so cool.
It's a treat.
Yeah, and we're on statewide. So we talk about Summerfest sometimes. They just had Atwood Fest in Madison. This is kind of like our thing in Northeast Wisconsin. Have you played a lot of festivals, and how does that rank?
Yeah, we played Atwood Fest last year, right? Yep. That was really fun. I love that one. They're all great. I would say Mile of Music is probably our favorite.
It's special. It's in our backyard. It's a beautiful place. It is a mile of music, and it's straight down all of College Avenue. It's straight up a mile of music, and there's maybe 30 different venues around that.
I think maybe even more.
Yeah, and it's just wild to
see different genres of music too, right? Like
it's a special festival. Yeah.
What do you guys? We're going to go to a break here, but it's just straight up rock and roll? Is that what you call Horace Green, or
indie rock in general?
We struggle with that question. We don't
you
know
said
what to
blues
say.
Before, so you don't have to, right? Like, who cares if you don't?
It's a little psychedelic. It's a little disco-y and dancey. It's rock and roll-y.
Genre bending.
Nighttime Boy, I saw on your website earlier. That had kind of a funk, psychedelic kind of thing too. All right, Horace Green is here. We're going to do the news, and when we come back, we're going to get a sneak peek at their new song called Cream. It drops tomorrow. You're going to hear it here on Nightlight First. It's Pete Schwaba on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba is part of the Civic Media Radio Network and airs across the network weekdays from 6 until 8 p.m. To learn more about this show and all of the Civic Media programming, check out the website at civicmedia.us/shows.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.